Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Fiera. I am the Supervisor of Guidance and Career Programs here at Lawrence. And tonight we have, we're very privileged to have a presentation by William Larrouse, but he goes by Bill. And he's going to talk a little bit about the college process. And I'll let him explain who he is and what he does. But I know this is a very important time of your life. As parents, a lot of parents are here where, you know, college is coming up and you think to yourself, oh my God, how did this happen? I thought I had more time, you know, and you thought there was around the corner. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And guess what? We're at the bridge. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce, and let's give him a nice round of applause, Bill Larrouse.
Here and talk. Can you all hear me clearly, or should I use the mic? Don't use. Thank you. Don't use the mic. I like that kind of affirmation. Well, my name is Bill Larrouse, and I'm the director of undergraduate admission at Rider University. Anybody ever hear of Rider?
Yeah.
All right. It took me 5 minutes to get here. I love that. Last night it took me an hour and a half to get to the college, the high school I was going to. So this is a real treat. Plus, we're neighbors. So I hope that you're all coming to our open house, and that's the last plug I'm going to make about Rider, because I'm not here to talk about Rider tonight. I'm here to talk about the college admission process and the selection process. I've been doing college admissions for over 28 years. I worked for 20 years at Rutgers University in the admissions office there, and the last 8 years I've worked at Rider. So I've had a really great career with an experience in larger public institution and a smaller private institution. So I feel like I've really seen the best of both worlds in really every sense of the word. And I really have come to appreciate through those different experiences how important it is to get onto these campuses and learn about the different kinds of colleges. I've been to 2 different kinds of colleges in my career. There are 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States and Canada from which you can choose. And I'm sure you're all getting tons of mail and hearing from people in various ways, and it can be overwhelming. And forgive me if I'm squinting. I feel like I'm being interrogated here with the lights. I'm not used to the spotlight. So anyway, this is who I am, and I do have my business card. And let me just put this whole process into context for you. You're about to make a decision, and I'm going to speak generally to you, but I know we have some students here and we have some parents. But for each of the families, let me get a sense. How many of you are in the junior year? Anybody in the junior year? Okay, so are you all seniors? Okay. Any sophomores? Okay, so you are all seniors. Show of hands, how many of you have already started to visit colleges? Okay, all right, good. Most of you, that's great to see. And how many of you have already started to submit your applications? Okay, a few. Well, you know what, it's still early October. That's okay. Most deadlines have not come up yet, but I know they're looming large. But the process can be a little overwhelming, and if you make it about you, and you start with what you want, what you know about yourself and what you don't, I think you'll find that it's a little more manageable. Also, please do rely on your counseling staff. You have a really well-seasoned counseling staff who know about the college admission process, which isn't true in every high school, so you are lucky. And you also have us right down the street, and I hope you won't ever hesitate to give me a call, even if the question isn't about Rider. So, if you look at the 2 circles behind me, you'll see that they're made up of like 3 different colors, and that the proportion of one color to the other, the green, the blue, and the red, is different. And that kind of represents a complete decision, and each person's circle is very different from the other person's. and that's okay. Not everybody looks alike. So, but I do think that each person is kind of, when they're looking at the college process, looking at the same basic things. First of all, the academic component. As basic as what majors do they offer? Do they offer the kinds of programs that I'm interested in? What are my career goals? And do the majors offered at that college or university lead to the careers that I might be interested in? And it's okay just not to know, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Second is the environment. How are you comfortable studying? What size college campus are you interested in? Are you the kind of person who really thrives on an environment where there's a small number of students in the class and the teacher gets to know you by name pretty quickly? Or do you like a larger campus environment where there are lots and lots of students around you at all times? Everybody's different, and all of those preferences are valid. And finally, there's also the financial piece. You know, you may love the campus, you may think that the academics are exactly what you need, but you can't discount the financial piece. What you need to know in that piece of it is have a pretty good sense of what you think you might be able to afford from year to year. And then when you're looking at the college or university, you're not just looking at the total cost of attendance, you're also taking into consideration what they are offering in terms of scholarships and grants and financial aid, because even a college with a high sticker price might not be that expensive once you factor in the aid that they might give you. A public institution may provide a lower total cost of attendance, may not offer as much financial aid, so you might find that the difference between two different colleges that you're looking at is not quite as different as you originally thought it was. So anyway, you want to take a look at all three of these things, and as a family, do an honest assessment of how these things weigh in the process. And I would imagine that all of them have significant weight. Okay. So, next thing you want to do is take an inventory. You want to start asking yourself some questions, some very basic questions, and you don't need to have the most brilliant answers. Nobody's going to ask you necessarily what your answers to all these questions are. These are to help you decide what college or university or sets of colleges or universities are the most appropriate to you. What are your career goals? Do you have career goals? That can be as very specific as I know that I want to be a veterinary surgeon and I want to work on large animals, or as vague as I think I want to major in the sciences, but then again, dance is really interesting to me. As vague as that might be, you're going to start looking at schools that offer things that you're interested in. So you may not want to go to a highly specialized institution that only offers a few majors if you really are still exploring your majors. And notice that I did not use the word undecided or undeclared. I don't look at these exploring phases in a student's career as being un-anything. They are very positive. And most colleges and universities that have a liberal arts base and offer dozens of majors do encourage students to embrace that undecided piece, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're clueless, it simply means that you're still exploring. And a college or university, for someone who's still exploring, is going to assist you in that process and give you the time to do that. And it won't necessarily take more time for you to graduate than someone who comes in with a clear idea of what they want to major in. So academic interests kind of get tied into all of that. You may not know what career you want to go into, but you know that you're really, really interested in history. If you know that you're interested in a particular subject matter, it's just something that you're passionate about, and I always encourage students to find their passion, you will find a career to match that passion. At Rider, we have a website that shows, regardless of major, what career students have gone into recently in every single major that we offer. Most colleges and universities can tell you those things, so don't be afraid of the ones that don't necessarily project a clear career path. They don't all have to. A good liberal arts education is going to provide you with pathways to a lot of different careers, and employers are looking for people with those critical thinking, critical reading skills, the ability to communicate, etc. The ability to solve problems comes out of studying many disciplines and not just one. There's that lifestyle thing again, that environment. Where do you feel comfortable? Are you dying to get into an urban environment where you're in the big city and there's plenty going on 24 hours a day, and you like the hustle and bustle? You know, ask yourself those questions. And don't necessarily assume that your college campus is going to look like your home neighborhood. It might not. If you do like more of a suburban environment, and this is the kind of environment that you really want to stay in, that's going to tell you something about the kinds of colleges that you're looking for. Is it important for you to be someplace where you can get to a ski slope in 10 minutes, or to get to the beach or something like that? Don't discount those things. There are great colleges in every corner of the U.S. So climate can have something to do with your decision. Location, there it goes again. If you know that you want to stay in New Jersey, you happen to be really lucky because we have so many wonderful colleges in the Northeast. 51% of the colleges in New Jersey and the colleges and universities in the United States are in the Northeast, including some of the best. So you have a great array within a driving distance of where you grew up. That's pretty cool. But if you really want to fly someplace, so you want to drive 12 hours, you can do that as well. Just remember, you have to drive home again. There's budget again. You have to factor that in. And I don't know is a valid answer to any one of these questions at this point. Okay, so when you're building your list, this is the list of colleges that you are interested in. Some tools that you can use. College Board has a really good college search website. If you haven't looked at that website yet, it's a great way to get a good thumbnail sketch of many of the colleges that you're looking at. You can search by major, you can search by location, you can search by a whole lot of things. So if you haven't been there, I would encourage you to try it. Some people still use other forms of college guides. They even still print those big books? They do, okay. They're in your office, right? Okay. Your school counselors, again, there's a plug for your office. They are really knowledgeable, and they can even help you to start that search. And all you need is a little nudge, and then you're off to the races. Teachers, if you're really interested in a particular career path or a particular subject, who knows about that subject better than the people who have been teaching you? So why not consult with them and say, hey, I'm really interested in English, and I really would like to delve into it on an academic level. Where are some of the good English programs in the world? Most likely your English teachers are going to know them, and chances are they're going to plug their alma mater. College fairs. There are plenty of those in New Jersey, right? Many. I just started to tell Ms. Welch, look, every college admission counselor in the state of New Jersey was at a college fair last Thursday night. So if you can't find a college fair in New Jersey, and these are great ways to just go and introduce yourself to college admissions reps, ask some basic questions, gather materials as if you're not already being inundated with paper. The college websites, I assume that you're all looking at those. Our data shows that many of our students actually learned about Rider first by looking at our website. So they're bypassing me and they're bypassing my staff. They're going right to the website. So you can find a lot of really good information there. A lot of people, it's surprising to me how many people will call us and ask questions that I love to answer. I love to talk to people. That's why I do what I do. But when you say, oh, well, this information is on the website, you say, you don't have to write it. Oh, it is? Yeah. College websites are really great resources. Family and friends, magazine rankings, even maps and dartboards work. Okay. So, you now have a list of colleges that you are considering. Every year, I meet a student, and actually we have a tour guide who is a senior in our office right now who's from California. And we had a student panel, we had a group of people like yourself on our campus, and one of the parents stood up and said, can you each tell me what your first impression of the campus was when you visited? Why did you choose to come to Ryder? And Anna stands up and she says, well, the first time I came to campus was for orientation when I moved onto campus in the fall. And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? All the way from California, she came to Ryder sight unseen. I said, Anna, you're not allowed to stand up during these things anymore because we don't want to tell people that. We want you to visit first. I don't want a student to deposit for enrollment in Ryder in the springtime after they've been admitted, not knowing pretty well that Ryder is a good fit for them. Because when we admit a student, I'm not so much interested in admitting freshmen. I want to admit alumni. I want to admit people who are going to stay at Ryder and graduate. A visit is a great way to understand whether or not this is an institution you should even apply to. So I can't emphasize enough the college visit. Check the college websites. Everybody's got open houses. I promise not to plug mine again, but October 25th, November 14th. Tours, most colleges offer tours almost every day of the week. Interviews, sometimes an interview is just a matter of sitting down one-on-one with somebody on the college campus and asking questions, getting to know them a little bit. Different from a presentation where you hear a college rep just talking at you. It really is an exchange of information, and sometimes that gives you a little bit more of a comfort level. So don't be afraid to ask for an interview, even if the college doesn't require one. And then, of course, sitting in on a class in a student for a day kind of atmosphere is really an excellent opportunity to get past the admissions presentations, to get past the open houses, and really see what it's like to be on campus for a day as a student. You're probably going to be shadowing a current university student. I wish more students would take advantage of our Student for a Day program because we find that the ones that do really do have a great comfort level with Ryder. If you are busy and you're in a particular area, don't be afraid to drive through the college campus. Sometimes the admissions office will be open, or you'll be able to get a map or even a self-guided tour. Some colleges even have apps that you can download onto your phone and take a walking tour. So if you are too busy to schedule an appointment or you happen to find yourself someplace, don't be afraid of the drive-by. Just remember, you're not necessarily going to get the same information in a drive-by that you would if you went for a scheduled visit. Should I visit more than once? Well, obviously, if you narrowed your list down to 30 colleges, you're not going to visit 30 colleges more than once. Choose your visit wisely so that you can get a good feel for the campus. What I like to say to students is, look, it's a relationship building activity. If you come for a tour, I met with a family who's never been to campus today, and they were actually relatively new to New Jersey, so they really didn't even have a good sense of place. They came to campus because they had researched one of our business programs. I said, look, don't be overwhelmed by the tour today. Just absorb it. If you like what you see, we have other opportunities for you to come visit either before you apply or maybe after you're admitted, because many colleges and universities have events specifically for admitted students. So you came for a tour in the fall, you applied, you were admitted. Now you can come back and ask a whole different set of questions. Maybe it's meeting with a financial aid counselor. Maybe it's sitting in on that class or just talking with faculty. Your questions will change as you go through this next 6 to 10 months. That last bullet, what does it matter? You may have heard people tell you, if you've read articles or perhaps your guidance counselors have told you, You know, expressing interest in a college is a way to get noticed. And that's not a game, but it is something to consider. Colleges do like to get a sense of who's really interested in that. Sometimes it just helps me to know what level of interest there is so I can predict how likely it is that a particular student is going to enroll. So don't be afraid to express interest, but I would say really be genuine about that. If you're not really interested in the institution, don't bother. But those schools that you are really interested in, introduce yourself to the admissions staff or the regional representative if it's a school that's further away. Get to know them, because the more you get to know those people and those personalities, the more comfortable you're going to become with one another, and that's always a good thing. So you visited. We are coming up upon the application deadlines for many of your institutions, so let's talk a little bit about the application process. You're now, maybe you visited most of your colleges. Make that list, because from there you're going to have to start doing some homework about requirements, application fees, deadlines, and things like that. How many is too many colleges? How many of you are planning to apply to more than one college? Most of your hands are going up. That's not surprising. That's great. How about more than 3? Keep your hands up if it's more than 5. Keep your hands up if it's more than 8. More than 10? More than 20? Okay, nobody's hands. Okay, there's at least one person here who is applying to more than 10. Interestingly, the average is going up every year, and I think that has a lot to do with the common application. It's very easy to apply to multiple colleges. Just remember that you have to pay an application fee to every college you apply to. So nobody should be working part-time just to support their application fees. All right? You should be able to narrow your choices down to between 8 and 12. If you can get it down even below that, you really are in a better position to really sort through your admission offers once you get them. Understand the requirements, and this is, if any of you parents or students have expertise in using Excel spreadsheets, I like to use these when I have a lot of different deadlines and a lot of different requirements. So if you are applying to a lot of colleges, my friend back there who's applying to 11 colleges, you want to know that College A requires a letter of recommendation, but College B requires 2 letters of recommendation. College C is test optional. I'll get into all these things in a moment. You want to keep yourself organized because each college has deadlines. Each college has different requirements and uses that information in different ways. Don't be afraid to call the admissions office. Every admissions staff is staffed by people called admission counselors. The reason they are there is to answer your questions. So if you have any question, well, how do you use the letter of recommendation? What should I write in my college essay? These are the people that you can ask, and some people don't realize you can call the admissions office and actually ask these questions. We're happy to answer them, and we don't mind that you're asking questions about our admission process. We want you to do well in it, and we want you to be well prepared. So deadlines. I start with the deadlines. If you have that list of colleges, tomorrow you should be making a list of deadlines because you may have some that are coming up pretty quickly. In general, I just want to go through some major terms that you'll hear. Early action and early decision, the 2 earlies. Early action typically refers to a non-binding application process as opposed to early decision, which is binding. What that means is, and I'll take early decision first. If you're applying early decision to a college, basically what you are saying is that that college is your first and perhaps only choice of colleges. You have made the decision that if you're admitted to that institution, you will enroll. And that's actually the agreement that you're entering into. That's the binding part. You're saying to that college, if you accept me through your early decision program, I will attend. If I have other applications out there, I will withdraw them. I will not apply to early decision for early decision at any other colleges because that's double dipping. And colleges who practice early decision often communicate with one another. And if they find out that you've applied to more than one school early decision, they'll withdraw your applications in both places. Okay? In a room this size, there may be one person for whom early decision is the right decision for that student. So don't get worried about early decision. Early action provides a lot of the same benefits to you without the commitment. So why do colleges have early decision? Because if I have an enrollment goal for freshmen of 400 students in my class, and I get 100 students to be admitted through early decision, I know I've got a quarter of my class. And as a college admissions director, that's as good as gold. Having that student locked in means I can go to my boss and say, I'm a quarter of the way there, or I'm a halfway there. That's why we do early decision. Ryder doesn't have early decision. We do have early action, though, which allows you to apply, usually by a deadline in early to mid-November, with the promise that if you send your application and complete it, we will admit you or give you a decision no later than the middle of December. So all of the benefit is in your side. And again, for me, it gets some of my applications in there. So early action is a good way to go if you want an early decision, but you don't want to lock yourself into that particular school. Preferred deadlines, colleges will often say, well, we have a preferred deadline of January 15th. Well, what does that mean? Well, that probably means that they will give you full consideration if you hit that deadline, and they will continue to accept applications as space remains available. The later you go in that college's process, it may be that there are fewer seats available, the competition might be ratcheted up, there might be fewer scholarships available, and that kind of speaks to rolling admission. Colleges will often roll until they complete their entering class. So some colleges will have rolling admission, continue to accept applications and admit people until they fill their class, and some will have a preferred deadline and roll until they're full. So if they have a preferred deadline, take it as an absolute deadline. That's the best way to go. Okay. How many of you have started the Common Application or are planning to start the Common Application? A fair number of you. The Common Application has hundreds of participants, colleges and universities across the country. And what the Common Application allows you to do is fill out one application and submit it to as many colleges as participate. You will still have to pay that individual college's application fee, so you're not saving money, but you may be saving time. You often may have to complete a short supplemental section that's specific to that college. For example, we participate in the Common Application, and we accept all of the information on the Common Application, but we have a little section for Ryder where we have students indicate what their majors are, because we ask them to choose from our list of majors, so we know exactly where they're interested in applying. So information that's specific to the college will be in that extra section. Okay? Institutions do have their own applications. If a college accepts both, it's a fair question to ask, do you prefer one over the other? Ryder doesn't prefer one over the other. We just offer both options for the convenience of our applicants. But some colleges would prefer one over the other, so that's a good question to ask. Fees and fee waivers. Most colleges have an application fee. If the application fee poses a hardship to you or your family, and not because you're applying to 30 colleges, if that application fee poses a hardship for financial reasons, your school counselor can provide a written request for a fee waiver to that institution, and most institutions will accept those requests for fee waivers. Transcript, high school transcript, test scores, SAT, ACT, subject tests, things like that. Recommendations. letters of recommendation from counselors, from teachers, etc., essays, and I'm going to touch upon each of these in kind. Activities and experiences. If you're doing a resume, great. Many colleges will accept those, or they'll ask you to list your best activities on the application itself. So find out how they want that information. And interviews. And lastly, do I have any performing artists here? Anybody applying? Okay. So you may be required to go for an audition for theater or dance or music or something like that. That will be part of the application process. And college websites will usually tell you how that process fits into the rest of the application. Okay, so let's take them each in kind. Your transcript. What do we see on your transcript? Your high school GPA. Your class rank, if your school ranks. Lawrence doesn't rank, do they? Do you rank? Okay. We don't use rank at Rider, so I almost never look at it. The quality of your course selection. What I mean by that is we're looking specifically at your college preparatory academic courses. So we're looking at your English, your math, your science, your social studies, things like that, your foreign language. And within that, most colleges require a minimum of 16 college prep units, which are the equivalent of full-year academic courses. If you have half your courses, that would be half a unit. We look to see how many beyond that minimum of 16 you've had. We also look to see if you've taken honors courses, accelerated, AP courses, college courses while you're still enrolled in high school. All of those things are also taken into consideration. So that quality of your college preparation is taken into consideration. Your trend in grades. Now, first thing I often see is GPA, but GPA does not tell me the whole story, nor does rank in class for that matter. I could have two students with a 3.0 GPA, but that trend in grades might be quite different, and it's going to tell me quite a different story on those two students. If one student has a 3.0 GPA, and from 9th to 11th grade we've gone from an A average to a C average, that's quite a different story from the student who's been a consistently B student for all 3 years, or someone who's increasingly improved his or her grades from year to year. While the GPA is going to be reflective of grades 9 through 11, there's a myth out there that the senior year doesn't matter, that we don't look at it. We actually do. We look at what kinds of courses you've selected. How many of you are athletes? I have a few athletes? Okay. What sport do you play?
Football, wrestling, track.
Okay, I'm going to take track as an example. If you have a meet next week, what are you doing right now?
Preparing.
How do you prepare for it?
Practice.
You practice, right? Okay. Think about college the same way. Your freshman year is that meet. If you're not practicing in your senior year to do well at that meet, that's going to send a message to me that you might not be fully prepared in your freshman year. So two things. I want to see you taking a good college prep program in your senior year. And second, I'm going to want to see that you're still doing well. For about a third of my applicants, we ask for first marking period or mid-year grades in the senior year. You never know who we're going to ask. So we want to see that your grades are at least commensurate with what you've done in grades 9 through 11, if not an improvement. Okay. If you are accepted, we'll flash forward a few months. You're accepted, now you've graduated from high school or you're finished high school. We're going to ask for your final high school transcript, and we're going to audit your transcript again and look at your senior grades, and we expect to see that you've performed as well as you were performing when we accepted you, because if your performance drops significantly, or if you don't graduate, or you fail courses that we were expecting you to pass, we may invite you in for an interview, or we may simply uninvite you to the institution. So that senior year is important. I already touched upon senior courses. Test scores, everybody's favorite subject. How many of you have taken the SAT or ACT already? Did any of you take it in the junior year? Okay, a few of you. So some of you are still going to be taking the SAT or ACT sometime in the next couple of months would be my guess. Most seniors who are going to take those tests will take them in October, November, December. Do I take the SAT or ACT? Well, obviously you're going to want to find out if the college requires one or the other. Many colleges will accept either one. And if they do, they tend not to have a preference one over the other. But again, not a bad question to ask your individual colleges. How many Saturdays do I give up? SAT is not a fun thing to do, nor is ACT. But I do recommend that most people take the standardized tests at least a couple of times. If you took it in the junior year, take it again once in your senior year. There's something called superscoring that many colleges and universities who require the SAT or ACT practice. College Board does not endorse superscoring, but we all do it anyway. All right? That is when we will take the highest critical reading from one testing date and the highest math from the other testing dates, because those are truly your two highest scores, and put them together to come up with your composite. So ask your schools, do they superscore? Do they take the best from each testing date? And do they look at the rest of your scores, or are they only interested in your best scores? Most schools will say we're only interested in your best scores, but you never know. You want to ask that question. Test optional schools. Anybody looking at test optional schools? All right, well, this is a growing trend, and many schools that you're considering that may not have been test optional a couple of years ago actually are right now. One thing you need to know, it is exactly what it sounds like. You have the option of either submitting your SAT or ACT or not. Some schools will just not look at them at all. Some schools will say, we really don't care. If you want to submit them, you can. They can only help you. They can't hurt you. Some schools will say, well, we're test optional except for our engineering school. We want the SAT for that. Or they'll say, we're test optional, but if you want to be considered for scholarships, you need to submit your SAT or ACT scores. So if you hear test optional from any of the schools that you're considering, know that you want to dig a little bit deeper and find out what they mean by that. Recommendations. If they're optional, think of them as required. Anything they tell you is optional, I mean aside from test optional, but any other documents that you see as optional, recommendation, an essay, consider it required, because obviously they're telling you they'll look at them if you submit them, and why wouldn't you want to put your best foot forward? Find out who they want the recommendations from. Most schools that require one recommendation are probably looking for something from the school counselor. Somebody who can give us an overall understanding of how well prepared you are for study at our institution. Beyond just your high school transcript, into your activities, into your personal growth, your academic growth, the school counselor is usually the person who can talk about those things. Sometimes it's not a school counselor, though. Maybe you have a teacher who can talk about those things better than anyone else. Most colleges will accept a teacher recommendation instead of a counselor recommendation, but not all, so check that out. If they do specifically require a teacher recommendation, if it's a science-based program, again, I'll use engineering as an example, they might want a recommendation from a science or a math teacher. If those recommendations are required, go back to that spreadsheet, look at the date that the application is due. If the application is due November 15th, the time to request that recommendation is not November 14th, okay? Unless you want a form letter. Fill in the blank is a really, really good student, and I do see recommendations like that. I tend not to place a whole lot of emphasis on them. Most teachers, most counselors take that process very seriously, and these people will work well into the hours of the morning at home writing letters of recommendation for you. So give them enough time to write a good one for you. How many? I would go with whatever they require. If they leave it up to you, probably no more than 2 or 3. If they say no more than 2 or 3, don't send them 6. We already covered who from. The essay. The big question, what should I write? If you look at most college essay questions. Really, all of the essay questions are asking you the same thing. Tell us something about yourself. And if you take that next step and say, well, this is a college application, maybe I should tell them something about myself relevant to my goals or how prepared I am to attend that college or university, you're golden. So one of the essay questions that we use year after year is basically tell us about someone who's been particularly influential in your life. And I get every once in a while a really great biography of Martin Luther King or Barack Obama or Grandma, but they don't tell me how that person influenced them. I don't want an essay about that person. I want an essay about how that person influenced you. Again, it's about you. And if you make it about you, all that anxiety, all those sleepless nights about what I do in the college essay should drift away, because nobody knows you better than you. And if you know that Jimmy Carter was a great influence in your life because he was a great humanitarian, and I want to go to work in the nonprofit sector, or I want to be a politician, or whatever the case may be, all of a sudden it becomes about you, and you can write about you. The only thing I would ask, who should write it? That's my little joke, I blew it. Yes, it should be you. Spell check. Everybody has access to spell check. Keep in mind, spell check cannot distinguish between T-H-E-R-E and T-H-E-I-R. So beyond spell check, find yourself a good editor. I consider myself a good writer. I've been writing professionally for close to 30 years. Nothing I ever write leaves my office until it goes past another set of eyes. Someone who isn't so close to it that they can't see that I left a period off the end of a sentence or left a whole word out of a sentence. Those are why you have a good editor. Your English teacher, your school counselor, sorry guys, parents, just somebody else who can look at this and say, hey, what do you mean to say here? This isn't clear. It's never going to be clear to you. You're the writer. You're too close to it. Activities and experiences. Basically, we are looking at quality versus quantity. We're not looking for you to show us that you've been involved in every single club and organization that your high school offers. We're looking to see longevity, perhaps development of leadership or commitment to a particular cause or activity, the development of a skill such as a musical skill or an athletic skill, things that we can show that show that you have been committed to something outside of your academic study. In most cases, a resume will help. And you use Naviance, right? Okay, you use Naviance. Naviance has a resume that you can a space where you can actually upload a resume. So if you're using the common application and college accepts a resume, you can provide that information right there. It's a good experience to start learning how to write a resume. We're going to teach you that starting in your freshman year when you get to college. Auditions. What's your art? Music? Okay, what do you play an instrument or do you sing? Tuba. Okay. And you want to pursue that in college. Okay, so you'll have to go for an audition. If you are applying for an audition-based program, you're going to want to find out what the timing of the audition is, because it may be after you apply. In most cases it is. They're only going to want to audition people who actually complete the application process. They'll also be able to provide you with prep information. For example, what kinds of pieces are they going to want to hear from you? Also, will they accept a recording as opposed to an in-person audition? And then you have to decide for yourself whether that's the best way for you to audition. By the way, even if you're not applying for an audition-based program, you may decide to audition for a band or something along those lines, and some of these regulations are good practice for you as well. Okay, so you've done all of those things. The application has been reviewed. We've just spent time looking at your transcript and your test scores and your essays and your letters of recommendation. We've reviewed it by committee. We've said, yes, congratulations, welcome, you're admitted. And you say, great, I'm in, I'm done. There's a whole lot of stuff left to do. So what's next? Well, first of all, the rest of your senior year. Remember what I said about your senior grades? I meant it. Financial aid. You're going to have a financial aid workshop in December. Everyone here should attend the financial aid workshop. There's a lot of really good information out there about maximizing your eligibility for financial aid. And I've talked to families time and again who say, I'm not going to get anything. And then they're surprised that the institution actually gives them something. You may not qualify for state aid, you may not qualify for federal aid, but you may qualify for aid that the institution offers. So always follow that process. Find out what's required from each college or university. Some will require the free application for federal student aid. That's the basic federal form, and most colleges will require that. Do they require other forms? Find that out soon. Look at the deadlines. Usually they are after the application deadlines, although next year they might not be. They might be a little earlier. And then colleges will have something called a net price calculator somewhere on their website. If you want to get a rough idea of how much that college is going to cost you based on your family income, you can do a very rudimentary review of that on the college website. Admitted student events. Again, getting back to what I said about visiting more than once. Now that you've been admitted, you do definitely want to go back to the campus, make sure it's the right fit for you. You might no longer be looking at 11 colleges, maybe now you're only looking at 2 or 3. That visit is often the clincher. The National Deposit Day, May 1st. That's the date by which, unless you've applied early decision and have already committed yourself to that one institution, most colleges adhere to this National Deposit Day or National Candidates Reply Date, May 1st. That's the date by which you must deposit in order to secure your seat in the entering class. The reason we have that national date is to give you a level playing field to compare financial aid packages, to visit campuses, to make a decision that is not rushed. Whether you're accepted to your first choice in November and your second choice in April, you still have until May 1st to make up your mind, and you want to make that decision very carefully. Again, I'm accepting alumni, I'm not just accepting freshmen. I want you to be satisfied with your decision. If a college says to you, well, yeah, you can deposit by May 1st, but if you want to live on campus, you have to let us know by March. Or that scholarship that we gave you is only good if you let us know by February. You can tell them that you expect them to adhere to the National Candidates Reply Date, the National Deposit Deadline, and they are not allowed to penalize you for waiting until May 1st. May 2nd is a different story. Okay. Finally, you see that thing in italics below? If I've admitted 6,000 people and my expected enrollment is somewhere between 900 and 1,000, not all of those students are going to accept my offers, obviously. That's why I've admitted that many. But I may also have a waiting list of students who would really like to enroll in my institution, but I can't let them know until I have a pretty good handle that I'm not going to over-enroll. So if you have ruled an institution out, and certainly by May 1st, the schools that you are not attending, tell them you're not attending so that they can get on with the business of making offers to students who are interested. It's basic politeness to let people know. If I've invited you to a party, you don't just ignore me. You let me know, I'm sorry I can't come to your party. I've decided to go to a better party. Okay? Same thing. Placement testing. Many colleges have placement testing as if you haven't gone through enough testing in your lifetime. That will usually take place late in the spring, probably sometime around May or June, when you'd rather be doing anything else but taking a placement test. And then orientations, many of which will take place during the summer. If you are the family that goes away for the summer and has a family vacation every year, that summer between your senior year and your freshman year, it's a good time to find out, okay, I'm going to go to Rider University and I'm going to find out when their orientation dates are so I can plan my vacation around it. Okay? Because it's usually better to plan your recreation and your vacation around your college education than the other way around. Okay? Questions? How are we doing on time? I guess not bad, right? Okay. Questions? Anything I didn't cover? Anything that I wasn't clear on? Yes?
Super scoring. Do colleges usually indicate that on their websites or admission pages?
Usually they do. And the question was, will colleges indicate that they super score on their websites? Yes, they usually will. And you asked me that question, and I had to stop and think, is it on my website? But if they don't, just call them and ask.
Okay.
Okay. And ask them specifically, do you super score the SAT and the ACT? Because sometimes they'll super score the SAT but not the ACT. Yes?
I have a couple questions. My daughter's new to Larrouse this year. She's a senior. We had moved over this summer, and you may be able to answer a question too. She's reached out to 3 of her teachers for letters of recommendations from her old school. Is it better? I know that she's not supposed to quote read them. It's not better for her to read them, I guess. So she's asked them to go to her current guidance counselor, Mrs. Gonzalez. Do the guidance counselors then forward them with the transcripts
Why don't
to
I let you
the
feel
colleges that she applies to?
Yes.
First of all, you've done the right thing, but let me just, how would you handle that?
Yes, we do.
So if the letters recommendations will go with the transcripts that we choose, and
Correct.
they'll be processed through guidance,
Correct.
that won't be a
Right.
problem.
Now, is it a problem if it's her previous school? No, right?
No.
I didn't think so, only she felt better because she's only been at Lawrence 2 months, and she was at her other school.
Those
all
teachers
years.
know
They
her, and that's
her.
exactly the point.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. A recommendation that is from somebody who really doesn't know the student isn't as meaningful.
Right.
Although I have actually seen some really great recommendations from teachers or counselors who say, I'm new to this student this year, but I've sat down with her, and this is what I know about her. Call me if you have other questions, whatever. Those are really nice too, because you know the counselor has taken an effort to get that information. But if she has somebody who knows her, why wouldn't that person write the recommendation? Absolutely. Yes?
From the time your child's accepted, what's the time frame when you would get, let's say, a financial aid package offer which you're given?
Okay, I realized that I wasn't clear on that. Okay, so you're accepted. The financial aid office will usually provide a financial aid package sometime in the February to March, early April. If you file, you've met all their deadlines. Usually the deadline for filing the FAFSA is around March 1st. That's the preferred deadline for Rider. And usually some close variation to that. The financial aid office will turn a financial aid package around in enough time in advance of that candidate's reply date so that you can make that decision. Okay. And one other thing I would suggest, if you're not completely clear about the financial aid package, you don't understand what a line in the package means, we also have people at our campuses called financial aid counselors. These are people who also have your best interest at heart, and they will explain things to you and tell you how your individual family circumstances might affect financial aid. And I think your financial aid presenter in December will get into a lot more detail, in addition to having much more current information about what the 2017 FAFSA is going to look like. Does that help?
Yes, but if you fill the form out sooner, does the institution turn it around sooner, or do they usually hold them fall so they've seen?
It varies from institution to institution. The FAFSA is not available until January 1st, 2016. Okay. You may have heard, and just to be very clear, The federal government is planning to make the FAFSA available next year. So the people who are juniors this year and going to be seniors. Next year, those students will be able to file the FAFSA as early as October 1st. Currently, the FAFSA is based on the previous year's financial information. So when you file the FAFSA in January or February of 2016, you're using your 2015 income, either an estimate of your tax income data or actually the data itself if you completed your taxes. Okay? You don't have to complete your taxes to complete the FAFSA. Next year, the federal government will be using not the prior year, but the prior year. So that October 1st FAFSA eligibility will be using the 2015 tax data. Okay. Not anything for you to worry about this year because the deadline...
How come that is? Just curious. Why would they do that?
I think what they're attempting to do is provide more time for families to make decisions. There's also what happened. Remember I said you don't have to file your taxes? The tax deadline is April 15th. Most colleges want the FAFSA by March 1st. If you are a family, unlike me, that doesn't just procrastinate but has very good reasons for waiting until April 14th to file their taxes, you may feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So you do an estimate on your FAFSA, the financial aid office packages you, and then if your tax data comes in once you file and it's different from your estimate, that could cause an adjustment in your financial aid. Now, in most cases it's not, but in some cases it will. So to take that pressure off families, the federal government has moved the FAFSA deadline, the FAFSA eligibility up to October to give you more time, and is using the prior year to base their determination of what your expected family contribution is. And then that expected family contribution is used to file by the individual financial aid offices. They look at the difference between what the government says you might be expected to pay and the cost of attendance at Rider, for example, and that difference is how much we attempt to cover in financial aid. Now, most colleges are not going to cover that whole difference, but they'll get it down to what we hope will be a manageable figure for your family. Yes?
How is the admissions process different from high school as opposed to from a community college? Because my son is already planning on community college.
Thank you, and I'm sorry that I overlooked that piece of it. Community college, for many reasons, a great way to start. In most cases, and this is again something you want to check college to college, if you are coming out of a community college with an associate's degree, which is roughly 60 credits, 2 years of study, the college is not going to go back to your high school record or your test scores to determine your admission. They're going to base that decision on your college record. The SAT is usually not required even after one semester. Okay? So they're going to base their decision as much as possible on your college record. Mercer, if you're going to Mercer, and many of the colleges in New Jersey participate in something called NJ Transfer, which is online. If you Google NJ Transfer, you'll find it. You can go in and look at any other college in New Jersey and map a curriculum from the community college to that four-year institution. So you can see at Mercer, if I wanted to major in accounting at Rider, NJ Transfer will tell you specifically what courses you should be taking. Now, Rider and Mercer have a close working relationship because we're so close together, so we actually have guaranteed transfer agreements with Mercer County College, so you can find out exactly what to take step by step that will allow you to transfer into Rider as a third-year student. including all of the prerequisites for your major, including all of the core requirements that students would typically take in the 2 years. And you always want to get that good transfer advising so that not only will you be accepted because you performed well, but you'll graduate from the 4-year institution in the time frame that you anticipate. Going to a community college should not mean that it's going to take you longer to graduate than if you started as a freshman at the 4-year institution. You should still be able to graduate in 4 years. Does that help?
It does. I have another question.
Sure.
The New Jersey transfer, is that only for the state schools, or will that work for schools across the country?
It'll only work for schools in the state of New Jersey. It's a New Jersey system, but it's both public and private institutions in New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay? But if I'm assuming because we're in Mercer that you're thinking about Mercer.
That's what he said.
Okay, if he's thinking about Mercer, there's a transfer advising office, and it does amaze me how many times I'll talk to students at the community college and I'll have you talk to your transfer advisor. Who's that? If you want to go to a 4-year institution, you're going to start at a 2-year institution, find out first day who the transfer advisor is. At Mercer, it's a wonderful person who's been working in our community for years, Laureen Jones. There isn't a thing about colleges in New Jersey she doesn't know about. She's a wonderful person, and she worked closely with Ryder. I saw Doreen shaking her head. She knows Laureen. Laureen knows the people at Rutgers, at TCNJ. Really great resource.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Other questions?
In the back?
Okay, I can't see you, but I'll assume you have your hand raised.
Yeah, what are the advantages of early action over early decision?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Advantages of early action over early decision.
Did you say what date?
Advantage, what is the benefit?
What is the
What is the
benefit?
benefit? Okay. The benefit for early action, really for both of them, the benefit is getting a decision from the institution early in the process, usually by sometime in December. Early decision has the added piece that you are actually locked into enrolling at that institution if they do accept you. Early action gives you that same early benefit without the commitment. Does that help?
I have a question that piggybacks to that. Is there any truth to the reasoning that you have a better shot of being admitted to a school early decision than if you would just going in,
You know, and I used to assume before I worked at an institution that had early decision that that was always the case. And just to repeat it so everybody can hear it, is it true that you have a better chance of getting in early decision than if you don't apply early decision? In some cases, yes, it is true. But not in all cases. When I came to Ryder, we had early decision, and that was not the case. We were simply trying to get a bead on how many students were going to commit to us. We don't offer early decision anymore. I mean, it's a philosophy of ours that we don't want to pressure students into early decision. I always had students who said, oh, I didn't realize that it was a binding commitment, and now I'm losing sleep because I really don't want to enroll at Ryder, or whatever the case may be. Why put somebody through that? That's Ryder. Every college is different, and you should ask that question. For that matter, even for the non-binding version, is early action a way to get a competitive edge over applying for regular acceptance? Most institutions will say no, but some will say yes. So it's a good question to ask for any institution that offers any of those things.
I had a question. If you want the college to understand, like, for instance, Ryder is your first choice, how do you let them know that? Through the application? Through calling them? What's the best way?
Any form of communication is valid. You know,
So maybe
yep.
a letter or something?
A letter, it could be in the essay, it could be a phone call. I don't read Morse code, so usually anything that I can read, I'm happy to accept.
And my son had asked a question. When you set the tuition amounts, when you agree to go to that college, is it usual for the college to increase the tuition for that year, or is it usually set by the time you accept your students?
Sadly, there is a thing called tuition increase.
Okay.
Okay, that happens at probably most institutions every year. And
After the May deadline, or?
when you get your financial aid package, and this is, when you get your financial aid package, it should be based on the cost of attendance for his freshman year. So, which may be higher than the cost of attendance for this year.
Right.
Okay? So they should be able to project what the actual cost is going to be
Okay, good.
next year.
Good.
They may not be able to project what the increases might be in year 2, 3, and 4, but you can ask, what's the average increase been over the past 4 or 5 years? Colleges should be able to provide that for you. And do you know if there is an intention to increase tuition down the road, are you expecting anything higher than that?
What is the usual average for,
It
let's
really
say-
does vary from
Okay.
school to school. We've been somewhere in the 4% range, okay? But it will vary from school to school.
Okay.
Yep, sure. Anything else?
I just have one more question in regard to that early decision.
Yes.
That I don't know if it was mentioned. If you apply early decision, don't get in early decision, does that eliminate you from reapplying then?
Oh, okay, that's a good point. So, and this is,
As a regular applicant?
if you apply for early decision and the college says, well, you know what, we're not quite sure that we're ready to admit you yet, they will do something called deferring your application, and usually they'll say something like, we're deferring your application to the regular application pool. That doesn't mean you're not going to get in. It simply means that you're going to be reviewed a little bit later. Still in a timely manner, but not within the early decision. If they do that, then you are released from that binding agreement. All bets are off. Okay. Sometimes even with early action, they may say, all right, well, we're not quite ready. And I'll give you an example. We have early action at Rider. I may get an application from someone who's applying early action, but for some reason I want to see how the student's doing at mid-year, which mid-year grades don't come out until February. So I have to defer that student's decision to the regular applicant pool so that I have time to review those mid-year grades. I'll tell you that the student still has a pretty good chance of being accepted, because if I want to see those grades, it means there's something I like about that student, I just want to be sure. I was getting ready to duck.
Ducks can be so rude sometimes, can't they?
They can be so rude. I'm sorry, sir, you had a question.
So what university looking more on GPA or test scores?
The question was, which do institutions look at more, GPA or test scores? I would say if you polled most colleges, they're going to say the GPA, meaning the high school transcript, over the test scores. But that's not always the case. Okay? I will tell you this. We place a great deal more emphasis on the student's high school record. And even beyond the GPA, at things like trends in grades and strength of academic program, those things do come into play quite heavily. It's more likely at Rider that I'm going to accept a student who's performed well or who's improving academically in high school, whose test scores might be below average, than a student who isn't performing well, who has really strong test scores. Because what the high school transcript tells me is how well you've performed day in and day out over the course of 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years, which is kind of what you're going to be doing when you come to Rider. So it makes more sense for us, and we've actually done studies to show there's a much stronger correlation between success at Rider and the student's high school record than test scores. There is some correlation to test scores, but nowhere near as strong. Ask that question of every college you're applying to if it's an issue that concerns you, because they should be able to give you an answer similar to what I said. Anything else? Okay, well, I know you're all anxious to get home and fill out those applications, pay those application fees, and visit college campuses. October 25th and November 14th. I hope that the process is a smooth one for all of you. I hope in some way I've been able to help with that. If I can help again in the future, I'm just down the street. I have my business cards here. I'm happy to give them to anyone, even if you're not thinking of Ryder. I consider myself a member of the counseling community. I'd be happy to help. Thank you.